In the last video, we looked at the shadow, the part of yourself you've quietly disowned, the traits you can't stand in other people, the reactions you can't quite explain, the version of you that leaks out around the edges, no matter how tightly you keep the door shut. And I promised you something at the end of that video. I promised we'd go further, that I'd show you how to actually meet your shadow, step by step, not in a mystical way, but in a way that has actual evidence behind it. So that's what this is. 4 steps, each one backed by replicated research. You can do all of them with a notebook and about 20 minutes a week. Let's start. Step 1. Find your trigger. This is the doorway. Because here's the strange thing about the shadow. You can't go looking for it directly. You can't sit down and say, "Show me what I've buried." The brain protects those parts of you on purpose. They don't surrender to a direct request. But they do leak. And the most reliable place they leak is in your reactions to other people. So here's the exercise. For 1 week, carry a small notebook. Anytime you find yourself disproportionately irritated by someone, not someone who genuinely wronged you, but someone whose manner got under your skin, write it down. 1 line. Just the trait that bothered you. Their arrogance, their neediness, the way they kept interrupting. Don't analyze it yet, just collect. After a week, look at the list. You're not looking at random people. You're looking at a list of traits that hooked something in you, and that hook is the clue. Remember the research from last video. Newman and Baumeister's 1997 work showed that the traits we most actively push away in ourselves are the ones we most readily spot in others. The list isn't a list of annoying people. It's a map of what you've disowned. Step 2. Name what you actually feel. This step is shorter, but it's the one with the strongest neuroscience behind it. In 2007, UCLA psychologist Matthew Lieberman ran a study using brain scans. Participants looked at images of angry or fearful faces, and the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, fired hard. Then he asked them to do one simple thing. Put a word on what they were seeing. Angry, afraid. The moment they labeled the emotion, the amygdala quieted down, and a different region, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's regulator, lit up instead. Lieberman called it hitting the brakes on your emotional response, just by naming it. So here's the exercise. Take 1 item from your list, sit with it for 30 seconds, and ask yourself, what is the actual feeling underneath the irritation? Not the story about why they're wrong, the feeling. Envy, inadequacy, shame, resentment, longing. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to do anything with it. You just have to name it accurately. That alone changes the brain state. And the more precisely you name it, not just bad, but the specific word, the stronger the effect. Step 3. Write it out. The 3rd step is where most of the shift actually happens, and it sounds almost too simple to work, but the research on it spans nearly 40 years. In 1986, psychologist James Pennebaker started a line of research at the University of Texas. He asked people to write, privately for nobody else's eyes, about their deepest thoughts and feelings around something difficult. 15 to 20 minutes, 3 or 4 days in a row. That's it. No therapist, no feedback. What he found, and what hundreds of follow-up studies have replicated, is that this small practice produces measurable improvements in psychological well-being, reductions in anxiety, and even changes in physical health markers like immune function. A major meta-analysis by Joanne Frateroli in 2006, looking across more than 100 studies, confirmed the effect. We don't fully understand why writing works as well as it does. The best theory is that putting an experience into words, sentences, structure, sequence, forces the brain to organize something that was previously chaotic. You're not venting, you're metabolizing. So here's the exercise. Pick 1 trait from your list, the one with the most charge. Set a timer for 15 minutes, and write about it. Where you first learned that trait was unacceptable. Who taught you? What it cost you to hide it. What it might have given you if you'd been allowed to keep it. Nobody reads this except you. Burn it afterwards if you want. The benefit is in the writing, not the artifact. Step 4. Build the trigger. This last step is what turns the first 3 into something durable. Because here's the catch. Insight doesn't change behavior. You can know your shadow intimately and still react to your boss the same way you reacted to your father. The gap between understanding and doing differently is where most personal growth dies. The fix comes from a psychologist named Peter Gollwitzer, who in 1999 published a landmark paper in American Psychologist on something called implementation intentions. It sounds technical. It isn't. It's just an if-then plan. What Gollwitzer found, across dozens of studies, is that vague intentions, I want to be less reactive, almost never produce behavior change. But specific if-then plans, when X happens, I will do Y, produce dramatic effects. The trick is that you're outsourcing the work from willpower to a cue. So here's the exercise. Take the trait you wrote about in step 3, and write one sentence in this exact shape. When I notice myself getting irritated by the trait, I will pause and ask, what in me is this touching? That's it. One sentence. Tape it somewhere you'll see it. What you're doing is wiring a tripwire. The next time the reaction fires, and it will, the cue triggers the question automatically. You don't have to remember in the moment. The plan does the remembering for you. One last thing, and this is important enough that I'd skip the whole video if it meant losing this point. Shadow work without self-compassion isn't shadow work. It's just self-attack with extra steps. Psychologist Kristin Neff's research, going back to her foundational 2003 paper, has shown again and again that people who meet their own flaws with kindness, the same kindness they'd offer a friend, actually change more, not less, than people who meet themselves with judgment. Self-criticism feels like motivation. The data says it isn't. So when you find what you find, and you will find things, meet them the way you'd meet a friend who confessed the same thing. That makes sense. Of course you hid that. Of course it got loud. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that's been waiting, sometimes for decades, to be let back in. If this gave you something to actually try this week, subscribe to Thoughtline, where every video gives you the research behind why you think, feel, and behave the way you do. In the next video, we'll look at one of Jung's most quietly radical ideas, that you've been using the word introvert wrong your entire life. Tell me in the comments, which step are you going to do first?